Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. For those who don't know, we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. You can send your questions directly to me. The number appears on the comments below. And, well, it's easier, more private, and it can make the conversation more fluid also. Because you can send and resend your questions with complete privacy. Let's make some silence first. First and foremost, silence. Now we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. You can send your questions directly to me on the call. Quiet your mind. Don't allow any subjects to remain there. Keep it absolutely still. No movement, no wavering. So silence. There is the silence where you maintain that space where thoughts arise, impressions, sensations, emotions. And that is a good silence. But there's even a better silence, which is that silence as you remain at the source. It is different. So being at that silence, which is maintained by the absence of noise, is not the same as remaining at the source. Remaining at the source brings connection to the source, tuning with it. And that is the best one. It's like resting at the source. And in the absence of noise, agitation, restlessness, dissolution starts, or reabsorption. And what is the cost of that silence? What does it imply? Well, for sure, there has been a distancing from the world, and that distancing may mean a lot of things, but for sure, if that silence is established, well, the world is not looking for you, and you are not looking for the world anymore. You have become a ghost to the world. It doesn't interest you anymore. So whatever appears to be there, if it is there, fine. If it isn't, fine. There's no interest whatsoever. And the world most likely has forgotten about you. Before it did, it tried its level best to bring your attention back to it. And as you got rid of your dependencies to the world, your admiration towards the world, your, this word in English, don't remember. The things you were wanting from the world. Then the world has more or less forgotten about you. Loved ones, friends, all of that. They remember you. And if they are interacting with you once in a while, whatever that means, they respect that. There's no interference. By your part, if silence is there, there's not even interaction, even if it appears to be. Because it is I source, or you. And as attention moves, it gets out from that place, from that silence. And in the beginning and for a long time, whatever is arising in your inner space of perception takes attention with it, takes your attention with it. Eyes closed, it is like this. Eyes open, it is the same, but the experience is different because it is the outer manifestations which are taking your attention towards them. I source, or the rest. And there's no use in bringing these cliches, everything is the same, because, well, At that level, it is I or the rest. Attention resting at the source, remaining there, or moving away from the source. It's like the universe. Experts say it is expanding, infinitely expanding. That means they haven't reached the end of it because it expands infinitely. So the space in your mind, what you call reality, there's no end to it. Because the point is not where it is going to, but from where is it leaving from. Focus, dissolution, self-realization, distraction, distraction. So what is the price of that silence? And I listen these days. I see so many people coming with this vision that they have silence, uninterested with the world, still completely plunged in a worldly life, but untouched by it, they say. Well, I still fail to see someone who is really living that state, apart from just words. The price of that silence is the complete transcendence of apparent limitations. Your desires, your attachments, your fears, they all are there for the sake of movement, of continuity. That is their purpose. When you're searching for happiness, you have your visions of happiness, your images of happiness, either in a worldly circumstance or a spiritual one. It is a forward motion that ensures continuity. And those who dare to stop that forward motion, they deal with their most deep fears. If you're not dealing with your deepest fears, and those fears that for you to deal with them, you have to be very strong. You have to be empowered by the intense practices. Because to deal with those fears, it's like going through a very thin line between sanity and insanity. So intense that it is. But if you have been building a reality where you are taking care of your needs, protecting what is precious, and imagine that you are working to achieve silence, or you have achieved it already, you're mistaken. And only by the absence of that which is dear, and which you may say that it isn't, it is, well, only by the absence of it, by the loss, you would see. But now, that is very difficult, because it was well built. And as years pass, it gets better and better. So what you really have built is a very nice cage. So silence has a price. The wise man pays that price gladly. As long as their fears, attachments, hankering for images of happiness, there's no silence. So intense spiritual practice, intense meditation. Meditation should be the basis. Intense meditation should be the basis. Scriptural reading, reading scriptures, is also very good after intense meditation. Not before, not with a curious mind, but at that level. And as you are struggling, and I use the word struggling because it is the best word, it is a struggle with your beliefs, or else it is not a movement towards silence, because you'll be struggling to maintain stillness, to cut investments, to let go of your wants, desires. And that is a struggle because they come with the absolute conviction that it will bring happiness. And this will make your misery arise. It won't bring misery, it will make your misery arise. And when it is arising, well, you know that you're doing the right thing. And that misery there arising has the purpose of taking you back to the same investments. But if you are firm and steady, even trembling, but steady in intent, that movement, that arising of your misery transforms into a release of your misery. And your stock of misery reduces. That will give room for more silence. And it goes like this until nothing else is left. Another thing that comes with intense meditation is intense focus. Sometimes the majority of seekers, more or less, they experience this intense focus through intense meditations. But the other way around also goes. You can bring intensity into your meditation by intensely focusing on the practice. It is a vibrational state. And without it, there's no life. If the mind runs loose, it will not create the necessary heat. So focus is very important. But how can focus be there if the mind is disturbed for so many things? And whatever is coming to you, whatever teaching is coming, if guidance is not there, if you have not surrendered the guidance, even these words can be misinterpreted. If guidance is there directly, not as a hint or something that you interpret as, but direct guidance, if it's not there, it means that you're misinterpreting things, adapting these things to the narrative of what you call your life, to the maintenance of illusion. This is what it means. And if guidance is not there, one way you have to look at things in a broader perspective is, whatever teaching is coming, is this increasing my spiritual practices? Is this intensifying my spiritual practices? Or is this reducing? Is this giving the opportunity for dispersion, confusion? Because the teachings may seem very elaborate, make a lot of sense. But what does this mean in practical terms for you? Is this in practical terms making your practice increase or decrease? These inner pullings, for those who are focusing and paying attention, they see the real nature of them, and they are overwhelming. This is why, through ages, seekers of truth would seek for seclusion, so that they could deal with things at the source of them, which is in that inner space of perception, without being disturbed by other things, by the indirect fruits of this. It's like, instead of going to the branches of the tree, and you cut the branch, 2 or 3 will come from that cutting. They would go to the roots of the tree of ignorance. And they will not allow any further distractions, so that they could bring focus and intensity. And as there's someone else or something around, it's very easy to distract. So this focus is a need. But even there, in those circumstances, it's all up to you. And you will see the pullings will come. So eventually you will have to cut those knots. Spiritual practice, meditation will not solve things for you. It will give you the tools to solve it, but it's up to you to solve it. It will make things possible, but it is up to you. But the meaning that it is possible, it doesn't mean that you will feel that it is possible, that you will see that it is possible. Probably you will see the opposite. You will think that it isn't, that is too much for you. It can be. Like I said previously, it is a thin line. But the absolute, the ultimate price of silence is that which is more important above all to the character. And that is sources of suffering. That is the most important thing to the character. Because without his suffering, images of happiness will lose their value. And without it, for the character, life becomes tasteless, purposeless. And he needs to feel that kick of the purpose. After silence comes contemplation of beauty, not circumstantial beauty, but real beauty. And then dissolution into that beauty, reabsorption. Finding that place of silence at the source needs a quiet mind. Remaining there, it's even much more difficult. Remaining there continuously. Going there and coming back, this is accessible for the majority of those who find that place. But that doesn't mean much, because it is in remaining the most precious thing that you have is your time. Using it to secure that which passes with time. That is a waste of that which is precious. Desires, they may offer a lot of nice things, but they are not there to offer you anything. They are robbing you. It's like you're using your time under the table, looking for scraps. And those scraps, they may be very good from your level of perception, but that is robbing you from what is on top of the table. But you have to rise to see, have to lift your head. In doing so, you will take your eyes from the crumbs and you will suffer because you are removing your attention from the crumbs that are so special, so important for you. You'll suffer because of this, because of the crumbs. And in that struggle, you'll not be able to see what's on top of the table, because you're just trying to remove your attention from the crumbs and being driven by that misery that is arising. And those crumbs may be the best in your perception because you haven't tasted the source of them. And they are robbing you from that which is really precious, unique. Yes, Gary. So this is what I'm dealing with. All the noise of normal is feeling unease, hard to focus. Of course, for those who are really trying, they will have this perception. But understand that mind gets sophisticated with time. This is why cutting all these things, understanding the real challenge that it is you, is very important. Because your mind will become sophisticated and will adapt your perceptions to convince you that you are progressing in the spiritual path, as you are in fact just taking care of worldly life, protecting your immediate source of pleasure / suffering. Because those who are really trying, they get to this conclusion. And what you call normal, if you're in a transition, you have to see this as a transition of goals, a transition of motivations. And if you're in a transition, you're leaving the old to enter a new that you don't know, but you know the old. So what is normal for you? It's what is old, what belongs to the old. So this idea of maintaining the axis of your life and bringing these teachings and try to implement this doesn't work. One will have to lose, or spiritual practices will increase and take over everything, or worldly life will take hold of everything. And now you may seem that, oh, but there are people that have normal lives and they have spiritual practices. Those spiritual practices, as I said, mind gets sophisticated. Those spiritual practices were absorbed into the normal life. This spiritual quest was absorbed into normal life. It became normal life. But the axis, all this work happens. The base of it, underneath that base is security, worldly stability, emotional stability that comes from circumstances that were established. And this is just a worldly life. For the seeker of truth, the basis, establishing in a base means that these insecurities, dependencies were overcome not by circumstances, but by being free from the desires, free from these beliefs of dependence. They have faced the demons. So it is quite different. But if you ask almost anyone, they will tell you that you're the problem. You're not getting focused because you're the problem. Your life is not, it's not in the way. This is what you will listen. Because when you are mature, you'll take both at the same time. No problem with that. Like I said previously, are the spiritual teachings making your practice to become more intense, directing your attention to focus completely on the spiritual practices, apart from the rest? Or is it the opposite? So if the seeker of truth is looking for transcendence, is all those things really necessary? You're welcome. The difficulty, what I was talking about, the focus, is very important. And those who really try to focus, it is a different state of mind. It's a higher level of consciousness. And that is very difficult to achieve if you're distracted with so many things apart from that. And for the real work to begin, focus has to be there. Intensity has to be. Either intense meditation will bring that focus, or intense focus will bring that intense meditation. Usually it is both, trying both, making the level best to increase intensity of meditation, the time of meditation, and the level of focus. And as you try to do that, and you're not being able to do that, that is your direction, that is your north. Because you will see what is standing in the way, and you will remove what is possible from the way. And as you remove what is possible now, your possible will change, and later other things will be possible. But if you look just at everything at the same time, then you'll just be overwhelmed and you won't be able to do anything. Duality. Need to work, which brings negative energy. Let's call it distraction. Time away from work being focused. Time away. But it's not just work. Understand this. It's not work, but what it means. So, focusing completely, you have to go through your fears, because that work, that money that comes from that work, it is exerting control over your life. And that you may be working because the body-mind complex is programmed for survival. And if possible, for prosperity. But first, survival. And when survival is assured, then prosperity. So all that work in the first moment represents survival. You're struggling for survival. You don't know how you came to existence and why, but you're struggling for survival. So something that happened on its own then needs you to continue. That's strange. And then, after survival is assured, that work, that money goes into pleasures. Pleasures, assuring more pleasures. So it's not just the work, but what it represents and the implications it has over and over again. It's like a rock that hits a lake. It makes a lot of waves, and a lot of waves. And so it is with all those things. So that work represents, in a way, your dreams, your aspirations, worldly ones, the images of happiness that you are following. Opposite from going to the source. So time away from it means cutting with these dependencies, these desires, because like I hear sometimes, oh, I'm going to make a sabbatic year. So I will stop everything and dedicate here. Okay, that is good. Maybe you'll have a chance to see something in that period. But suspending things don't change much if you're doing this with a security. And you have a guarantee, for you it is clear that you will resume back to it and continue. So no threatening here. The structures of the character are not threatened. So removing from work has to be removing yourself from dependencies, from worldly aspirations, from the images of happiness, from happiness itself. Because you don't know what happiness is, and that word only creates confusion for you. Replace that word for truth. And don't attach any meaning to it. Because if you attach anything, it becomes a useless word also. And it is a shift, adapting the spiritual quest for worldly purposes. And that doesn't bring anything good, whatever that means. Yep, so really I'm just making excuses. Yes, that is the case. And the more you see this, the better you'll become in keeping the focus. Because you are the obstacle, nothing else. And things only seduce when they interest you. So if you're not questioning yourself, the narratives that are arising, you'll just fall back into distraction, fall back into distraction. Even what you're looking for as spiritual teachings, masters, and all of that, if they get aligned with your vision, they are good. If they are not aligned, then it is bad. If it threatens what is precious to you, it's not good. It's not the way. I don't feel that it is the way. But if it helps, if it justifies the maintenance of what is precious, your worldly activities and investments, so that must be good. if the mind is not so overwhelmed as you ask the question, who am I? As this question is asked, attention moves towards a place. And that place is the source of identity. And whatever keeps your attention from there is distracting you. There is I don't know the name in English, but there's an instrument that little boys like to play when they're young. It has an elastic and it sends a little rock. They can project a rock with it. And play with these concepts. Keeping what is precious, taking care of it, and doing spiritual practices, trying to remain at the source without touching this. It's like that instrument. So you pull it, as you let go, it goes back to its normal stance. So it is more or less the same. So you may even see a little bit of silence, you may feel that presence, you may feel that source of identity, but it always resumes to the normal stance. And you cannot maintain yourself there. Because you're still being pulled by those interests you were feeding. So you'll go back to them and go back to them. So making that crossing, it's like that story that told that for you to cross to the other world, you had to pay to the boat, to the man of the boat, you have to pay in gold coins. So they put the coins in the corpses so that they would have the coins to cross the boat. So in this sense, to cross into the life of the spiritual quest, to become a seeker of truth, your gold coins are your securities, your dreams, your worldly aspirations. So when you lose those, you have nothing to pay. So as these are fresh, potential is greater. And at N, yes, very difficult right now to be in peace. High energy in the outer and the inner balancing. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by this, but understand that if you don't know who you are, if you're not self-realized, then there's no point looking for peace, aspiring for peace. But if you're in the middle of all these circumstances, trying to feed both ends, then, well, it is like that. This lack of peace may be for a lot of things. But if you're focusing on your spiritual quest and removing yourself from other circumstances, then don't aspire for peace, because lack of peace will be there intensely. Suffering, distress, inner convulsion. And this is a good sign. This is a very good sign. Because if you're a seeker of truth, you will, as this is increasing, you will intensify more your spiritual practices. They will make you will seek refuge in your spiritual practices. And this will make you cut with all of that which is too much and establishing yourself in that good road. And even when a little bit of peace comes, because it comes in waves, suffering comes out, then you experience more peace, and then more suffering, more deeper suffering will arise, and then that will allow more peace because you're emptying your bag of suffering. And as you're experiencing this peace, you will not get attached to it because you don't know who you are, so that is not real peace. You will even intensify more so that the stress comes again, more deeper one. And the faster this continues, well, the faster it will empty. There's this idea, which is the program of the character. He is always trying to establish himself in peace. And the peace, and his peace, has a meaning. And with time, it changes. But if you don't know who you are, forget about peace. Ultimate peace, yes, but circumstantial peace, no. If convulsion is not arising, you're not touching anything. So it means it is dead. And it is in dealing with those convulsions that are arising that you will strengthen yourself enough to deal with the higher challenges. So it's all a part of it. When seekers start meditating, or even when they're meditating a lot, they sometimes come with the question, I'm trying my level best to meditate, but there is this discomfort. I've put pillows here and there, but it doesn't change, and this doesn't allow me to focus. What should I do to avoid this discomfort so I can focus more? And I have to answer, but do you think that discomfort is really a problem that needs to be avoided? The more cushions you are putting under your feet, each cushion represents a fragility in your mind, a sensitivity there. It's the pain being there, it's not the problem. The problem is your fragility. So the pain is giving you an opportunity to strengthen yourself or to give up, to try to control things, to assert control, to run from suffering. This is worldly life. You may solve the posture. Well, if it is incorrect posture, it's not good for other reasons, not because of discomfort. But it will hurt, because when you start meditating, well, the processes of dissolution begin, of purification begin. And those intense pains, they are intense, they are gross blockages of energy. And it's like the subtle is there trying to release that gross manifestation. This is one part. At the other part, it is strengthening your mind, your resistance. It is challenging you. It is strengthening your nervous system, and you will need this strength to what lies ahead. So all is a part. There are things that you can do to improve that, but understand that that's not the main thing. If you keep avoiding suffering, you are in fact making sure that it will remain there, and you are keeping your mind weak. And the impacts it will have over you will always be devastating. But if you learn to sit with that discomfort without doing anything to change it, you'll get stronger and stronger and stronger, more stable. You'll stabilize emotions, thoughts, everything. Your body posture will become stable. And it will prepare you for the next steps. Okay. So if there are no more questions, it is all for today. Next satsang will be Wednesday, 9 o'clock in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Okay, so until then, make the best use of your time. And remember, is it helping you to increase your spiritual practices, the time you are dedicating for your meditation, for your spiritual studies?